It's December 3rd, 2020. This is Roqe. On the way to exploring different personalities and voices across the Persian diaspora, you'll come across folks who will surprise you with their personal journeys and how they've created a space to connect with others. How about an Iranian-American woman who was a VP in the banking industry, left to become a successful portrait photographer, and now runs a very popular internet webcast talking about life, love, relationships, and identity. Kusha Alagband is the host and creator of Kusha's Corner and Car Talk with Kusha, and she joins us for a feature interview today. Plus, the Roqe team has assembled with a variety of opinions and a barrel of letters. This is Conversations from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Well, hello there. Welcome to episode number 67 of Roqe. Number 67. Hope you are in good spirits, managing the lockdown one way or another, wherever you are in the world. امیدوار هستم که قرنطینه‌تون okay باشه. Hi, Kian.
Hi, Jian.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
You know what?
What?
We are on an ongoing mission.
We sure are.
To build a new audio-visual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. Coming to you on SoundCloud, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Telegram. Which platform do you use, Kian?
I usually use YouTube.
I see.
Actually, or Spotify.
Old school.
I like it that way.
Rocking it old school. That's how you roll.
Very old school. Yeah.
Right. So today we have an interesting feature guest, an Iranian-American woman who's been a very successful portrait photographer in California and has now started this Instagram and YouTube show. You would watch her on YouTube because you're old school.
On
way.
Instagram.
You don't know the SoundCloud, the Telegram, the kids.
Telegram. I don't live in Iran, so I don't use Telegram.
You say that with such disdain.
Well, no, I mean Telegram is predominantly used by Iranians. I do have it.
True.
But,
yeah. So she's started this Instagram and YouTube show, talking to the camera from her car, usually, about life, advice, relationships, lessons learned, challenges we face, anxieties. Her name is Kusha Alagband. And she does these video monologues from inside her car. And she's also started these car talks where she interviews folks, notable Iranians, most of them in her car, and has this growing audience for what she calls Kusha's Corner.
No, I think
you're
that's
staring
great.
at me.
No. I've seen some of her stuff, and they're quite entertaining. I will say that.
Yeah, she's smart. She's charismatic. She's very open about her life and personal details. I'm looking forward to speaking with her. So she will join us from Los Angeles in just a few moments. Hi, Groovy Shaya.
Hi, Jian Jan.
Hi. How are you? خوبی؟
I'm good.
عزیزم.
How are you?
عزیز دلم.
جانم.
Hi, Captain Reza.
Hello,
sir. Yeah. The difference between these two, right?
That's it. It's two very.
I feel it's a lighter episode today, you guys. We had a heavy one on Monday, the 1 year anniversary of Bloody November, and we're due for something a little lighter today.
Yeah.
We, by the way, you can see that episode or watch or listen to that episode at the hub of all things Roqe, our website, roqemedia.com. All of our episodes are there. Our patrons page is there. If you want to support us, please do. It says support us, there's a little button there. So roqemedia.com. What was I going to tell you? COVID is continuing, obviously. I had a weird thing, like an annoying thing happen a couple of nights ago. I would file this under the ongoing indiscriminate nature of mask culture. Like months in, people still can't figure out this mask thing, right? So I went grocery shopping. Like I went to a supermarket. It's called Metro here in Toronto. It's a supermarket. Yeah. What do you call a supermarket in Iranian?
Wait for
supermarket.
I went. No, but really, it's not a magasin. Like, what is it?
It's a
we have
supermarket.
for supermarket we say
Super Khorak.
but
Is Super Khorak just a place in Toronto, or is that actually a name of like where you go?
no, it's in Toronto.
Oh, okay. So supermarket.
Yeah.
Okay, رفتم supermarket.
Yeah.
All right.
But for the cozy one, you can say bakkali.
Oh,
Like a convenience store or a bodega.
no, it wasn't a convenience
Those are
store.
bakkali.
It's a big
Yeah,
place
that's
where you want to do
supermarket.
all your shopping. So you in Tehran, you say, "Bacha berim supermarket." Is that the way?
Or super.
Oh, super. Okay. So I went to the super.
But also, super is euphemism for. I mean, it's not euphemism. It's another word for porn.
Film super.
Film
Yeah,
super
yeah.
is
Really?
porno film. Yeah.
That's right.
The more you know.
Well, so you don't go to super.
You access super. Right. Okay. Well, so I went to the supermarket. Useless. What is this language of ours? So I went to the. Anyways, the point is, I need to buy some stuff, but in particular, I wanted to buy some feta cheese. Now, in my family, we called feta cheese, of course, the good stuff, not this run-of-the-mill feta cheese that these, that the Havun eat, right? Like we call it in our family. We call it pani de Tabriz. Is that acceptable to you guys?
I've never heard that.
I heard that.
Actually, we would call it panir sefid.
Yeah. Well,
We just call it panir.
Maybe it's because my mother was Tabrizi,
Yeah.
but we call it pani de
But I
Tabriz.
love panir tabriz.
I love pani de Tabriz so much that, like, if I could just eat pani de Tabriz, I would. In fact, when people come over for like a party or their housewarming or they're coming, I wish people, instead of bringing like a bottle of wine or flowers or whatever, they would just bring pani de Tabriz. I'd be happy.
Wow.
I'll remember
Love the
that.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay, noted.
So there's a counter at my supermarket. It's turning into Italian. At the supermarket, I go to. Hey, I get some prosciutto. So I go, and at the supermarket, there's a counter where they dish out the different deli cuts and meats and cheeses, right? So I go there, and because there's these big bins of what do you call it, trays of feta cheese, and they'll cut it and give it to you. So there's a woman working behind there who has like a proper headscarf on and a mask and gloves and everything. And I go up to her to say, "Can I get some?" And right when I get there, she walks away, busy with another customer or something. And a guy comes over who's like he can't be. I mean, he must be like 21 years old, like metal dude, right? Like he's like a rocker guy who's got like stringy, like kind of hair coming out, like long hair coming out of the net that he's put on his head, and he's wearing a mask like that's First of all, the mask is like, I appreciate that people have their own masks, but it's like some mask that's black with a rock band name on it. It's like some, Helix or like Iron Maiden or something, but I can make it out what it. So he's wearing that, and you're kind of like, I'm all in support of interesting masks. We're going to do Roqe masks, actually. Mm-hmm. But when you go into a professional environment, it's like, can you just wear a regular mask? I don't know where this mask has been, right? So, but more so, he does the move where he's got the mask, and this is where I'm getting about the indiscriminate nature of mask culture. Do you know what I'm about to say?
I think I know.
Which is what?
He was wearing it on his chin, or just
barely? No, he's wearing it over his mouth, but his nose is exposed. All right. Now, how 9 months into this, or like a year into this propaganda, but how can you not know how to wear a mask, right? In an environment where you're gonna get me the pani de Tabriz in the super, right?
Yeah.
So and to make things so my instinct is to want to go, oh geez, not this guy, right? Like give me the professional woman who a second ago was gonna get the prosciutto and pani de Tabriz for me. Now this guy, and before I can say anything, he goes, "Hey, Ghomeshi," like he recognized me.
Oh, okay.
Also, he goes, "Hey, Ghomeshi," and does devil's horns, like he does the little rock and roll thing, like. And I don't know how to respond to that. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like,
you do it back?
I didn't do it back, but I was like trying to sound young. Like I was like, "Hey, man!" Like I don't know, what am I supposed to say to him? But so he recognized me, and then he goes, "I really liked your interview with Slash." right? From behind his rock and roll mask. I really like your interview. So Slash from Guns N' Roses, a guitarist. This is an interview probably 10 years ago I did, on CBC. So but very nice, thank you. I don't know, he must have seen it on YouTube. He doesn't look older than 19, and he's like spotty faced, like long hair. And so anyway, so now I'm caught. Like the guy, he's actually not only am I captive to this server, but he knows who I am, and he said something nice to me. I can't, to say something bad. Like I can't say, hey, thanks for complimenting me on this interview from 10 years ago. Can I get that other woman to serve me? Right? It's not possible. So the guy with the exposed nose, and kind of I have to say, for a white guy, like a prominent nose too. Like he's, it's like a big sort of, he said, what can I get you, man? Hey, Ghomeshi, what can I get you? And I was like, well, I actually was going to ask for some feta cheese. All right. So he goes, and how much? How many? Well, I'm like 300 grams. And, I'm half Pashimun. Like I'm half like, how do I get out of this? But now I'm in. I came for the feta cheese. Okay. So he goes, so he cuts the feta cheese, and then he goes, how's this? And holds it up, but he's holding it close to his face. And the only thing I can imagine is the molecules. What are they called? The droplets, the COVID coming from his, nose and the top of his head onto the feta, right? So I'm getting really freaked out, and I'm like, and I'm kind of getting anxious, but I want to close the deal, He's like, is this good? This good? And I just want to say, like, move it away from your head, So I go, yeah, that's fine, And you want some of the juice? Now, of course, I want him to put it in a thing with some of the juice. So then it's like he's going out of his way to put his head close to the juice. What do we call a metal guy in Farsi? Like a rocker,
Honey?
Metalhead? I don't know.
Actually,
that's
don't say metalhead. It's not good.
No, that's a good point. I think
we don't have them. Do we have a?
No.
We don't have a word for rocker, like a kind of a. What about like a hooligan, like a guy who's who's kind of a.
I think we don't have.
Really?
No.
So it's amazing that Iranian culture doesn't have a word for hooligan. No. It would be helpful.
What an outdated language.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the rocker guy is he puts the paneer tabriz in like a little container with some of the juice, and all I can imagine, like now it's all psychological. Like the guy probably doesn't have COVID. Nothing was coming out of, but I can't stop seeing the COVID molecules having gone in the package, and he puts the lid on it, right? So now it's like, like those lab experiments, like in Ghostbusters or something, like if you open the lid, it's all going to come out, So I take it from him, I can't say, now I don't want it. You've gone to all this work. So I take it and I go on, I pay and buy some other groceries, and I leave, and I come home and I put it on the counter. I'm just staring at this. Like, what am I going to do with it? Right? Because I can't really imagine myself opening this and eating the paneer tabriz without thinking about the dude's nose and the molecules and the droplets and the.
You are the biggest germaphobe
I am.
I've ever met.
Guess I am.
And it happens to you quite a lot. The last time at the gym with the gulgach, this time with the paneer.
You're very sensitive with masks.
But hang on a second. Would you guys eat that paneer tabriz?
If the guy recognized me. Like the same situation.
Yeah.
Same situation.
The guy with no cover on his nose.
I'd be like, the hell with it. Let me get COVID. This guy, I don't want to break his heart.
I know. And then they say it can't be. No, I bought it.
Oh, you bought it.
I'm saying when I take it home.
I would throw it out.
No, come on, you would not.
Yeah, I would.
Really?
If the guy's like holding it close to his nose.
But I feel like he's exaggerating.
I am exaggerating.
It was like a meter away from his nose.
But it was not a meter away from his nose. I just can't get the imagery out of my head. It freaked me out. Yeah. So anyway, I got rid of the paneer tabriz.
You did?
I did.
There are people starving in this world.
I know. But better I not give them the paneer tabriz with COVID.
The hell with it. Get COVID at that
but
point.
You should have brought it to me, for example.
Actually, it occurred to me. I bring it in here without telling you guys the backstory. Wow. You would vacuum it up like you do the rest of the food here.
Even if you tell the story to me, I mean, I don't have problem to eat that cheese.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's next time that happens, you bring that cheese over here.
I guess so. I know. I love the cheese. I couldn't, and the guy was nice too. There's nothing wrong with the guy, but I suspect there might have been some COVID there. How do you know? And he's got the nose exposed, and it's hard to tell.
With Gerdu, I think Gerdu would balance it. Would get rid of the COVID.
Okay, but if you put it, I don't know, leave it outside in the cold, doesn't the cold weather kind of take care of the germs?
You know what's really funny? I'll tell you a true story. She's going to hate me telling you this. But I told my mother about this, and she was like, Eva, like she was like, don't eat the feta cheese. Like she fueled my anxiety.
If he's paranoid about Persian moms are the queens of exaggeration.
She was like, get rid of that panita tabriz. I'll make you some. I'll find some. We'll go to Iran and get some.
Burn your clothes. You probably got that.
By the way, I think gula khahani would be a good word for that.
It always comes back to gulach. There's the derivations of
actually.
But the guy wasn't a gulach though.
He was actually a little stringy guy, but
like his skinny dude, probably like long hair, dirty.
So when you add ahani, maybe we can say for
gulach ahani.
Okay, that's our new word. You're welcome to the Farsi language.
But doesn't gulach mean big, like
meathead? That's what
meathead, overgrown guy? You can't say just like.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, God love the metal dude. I hope he's not listening. I know he's not listening. Actually, probably hasn't listened since the Slash interview that he saw on YouTube. But it was very nice of him. I just, again, you're right. It's like the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I should have just told the guy, hey, bro, can you put the, maybe if I did the devil's horns and say, hey, man, can you put the mask back down? But then I feel like,
he'll feel offended.
And that's his story for the rest of his life. That Ghomeshi guy, shamed me about my mask. And
I met him. I was a fan of his.
Yeah. I liked his Slash interview, but now this guy with his particularities said, okay.
What a world.
What a world. What a world. I'm sorry to Kusha Alagband and her fans for taking up this much time because we've got to get to everybody. We got a lot of letters, right?
We do.
Because I know we haven't done letters in 3 or 4 episodes.
I took a week off. So there's a backlog.
There's a backlog, but you've selected some of the prime.
Only the finest.
Prime cuts.
The finest for you, Jian.
Thank you. So we're going to get to what are they about?
Well, we had the Sonita interview, the Afghan rapper who's a humanitarian as well. We have the episode on Maradona, the
remembering Maradona,
and how it relates to Persian culture, which it does. For those wondering how,
was Maradona a bit of a gulach ahani?
At the latest,
I think he was regular gulach.
Not ahani. Ahani sounds like he was gulach talai. Right?
Gulach talai.
Gold gulach. Yeah.
Was he a gulach though? He was. He wasn't a large.
I think if he wasn't Maradona and he was just some guy that you saw in the street in his later years, he seems to fit the description of gulach.
Oh, 100%.
What a character.
Right. Okay, so for those of you who didn't listen to that episode, gulach is and you don't speak Persian. It's I guess when we were talking about one of these beefy guys at the gym who's really pumped up,
like a meathead.
Gulach. Yeah. So you were saying Sonita, Maradona,
and then we had that episode on Monday about the commemoration 1 year later.
The Alagband protests. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to all the letters in a little while. The fabulous Keon is here, Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya. Thanks, guys. Let's get to our feature guest. And our feature guest today is an Iranian-American woman who first came to prominence as a celebrity photographer, capturing remarkably intimate and expression-filled moments with well-known stars and their families and loved ones. Her photographic subjects have included global icons like the late basketball legend Kobe Bryant, important figures in the Iranian diaspora, and ordinary folks in extraordinary settings that she's captured around the world. More recently, Kusha Alagband has become more recognized for her work in front of the camera than behind it. She's now the woman behind an extremely popular Instagram channel and YouTube series called Kusha's Corner. In it, Kusha makes accessible little videos where she speaks to camera and opines on all manner of subjects from daily life to the challenges of being a woman, to love, to relationships, to global affairs. And she often does so sitting in the driver's or passenger seat of a car. She also conducts engaging and entertaining interviews with friends, family, and stars in the same format, and has done recent car interviews with the likes of Max Amini, the hip-hop star Irfan, the comedian Tehran, as well as her trusty partner and friend Mahsa. It has made Kusha a growing star of the internet and well worth following, and right now, the charismatic Kusha Alagband joins me from Newport Beach, California. Hello.
Hi, Jian. That was quite an introduction. Wow.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
You're comfortable with being called charismatic, I hope, because you certainly come off as charismatic in all of your work.
That's very, very kind of you. I'm blushing right now.
Well, good. You deserve that introduction and so much more. I'm so excited to have you on the program. Thank you for doing this. Let's get the obvious out of the way, and a question that I know you're likely sick of answering already. Why decide to sit in a car? Why? First of all, are you in a car? Are you currently in a car?
I am in my Tesla. In fact, I need to get a sponsorship or something from like Elon Musk himself. Let me tell you something. I sit in this car. What's the equivalent of like a man cave? Have you thought about that? This is like my man cave. It's your female cave. It's my female cave. If I'm not in my car, my kids are my 11-year-old and my 9-year-old and my husband and everyone else is coming and giving me things to do and screaming at me, yelling at me. So I just come into the car for a few minutes just to have time to think.
So how did you first discover that sitting in a car was the right venue for you to start taping yourself on camera?
Honestly, it just sort of happened organically. I didn't give it much thought. I'm in Southern California, and as anyone that knows, we drive a lot. We're constantly driving from here to there, and I'm running errands, and I'm going to work, and I'm dropping my kids to various classes. And so in between those times when I had some free time in the car and I was just thinking about things, I would just whip out the camera and just say something. And it started from there. I really hadn't put much thought into it, to be honest with you.
But it also occurs to me that it really is a good venue to sort of disarm people and make people comfortable at the same time. You kind of sitting in a car. There are some distractions, I would imagine, but the person is captive to a conversation that you're having, and it's in a familiar kind of setting. They're not walking into some studio with lights and cameras, and so do you think that's part of the charm of the car as well?
Oh, absolutely. If you're referring to my car talks with other people, absolutely. I just found it was always my experience back to my childhood in Iran when we used to take all these family road trips with my parents, to Shiraz and Esfahan and all those places. And then here in the States, when I was in college, and my best friends and I used to drive on Pacific Coast Highway and have our best conversations. I just find that the most real and authentic conversations always happened in the car for me somehow. We really didn't have a destination. We were very, very present, and somehow just conversation flowed. And I guess subconsciously that was just my model. That's just what I thought.
Have you always been a conversationalist? It seems to come naturally. You seem inquisitive. I mean, watching you, there's no script. You're just somebody who feels very comfortable talking, and you seem like a curious person. Has that always just been the way you are?
Yes, that's just the kind of family I come from. We love having wonderful conversations. I really hate small talk. I'm not much of a small talker. And I just love getting into in-depth conversations. But what I mostly love is I think everyone has a story, and I love hearing their stories. And I think that's part of also what I learned when I was in the private banking world many, many, many years ago, back in another lifetime. That's what I learned. People have stories, and it's really wonderful just to be a good listener and see what they have to say.
Well, I'm going to ask you about the banking world because it's interesting that's where you emerged from. But when you talk about telling a story, you've said we come, I guess, in reference to Iranians or those of us of Iranian descent, like you and I. You say we've come from a culture that is shame-based and based on perfectionism. Yep, I got that. And you've said, I wanted to let a lot of that shame go by telling stories. Can you explain that?
It's my opinion that, we do come from a shame-based culture, a perfectionist culture, like think about the concepts like aberu. We're constantly being threatened. Aberut mire, aberuto mibaran,
Right.
So we have
what is aberu in English? We know there isn't even an equivalent of aberu, is there?
No, what is there? Ashaya.
It'd be like aberu would be like status. Your status will be diminished somehow.
Yes. Your status will be, you'll be tarnished or something like that. I would imagine. And so, when you grow up with that kind of I wonder if this is the right way to put it, like collective consciousness, I suppose. It's really difficult to be authentic. It's really difficult to be seen. It's really difficult to be heard. So you really have to do some real work and deep digging to, find your authentic self. And that's what I've tried to do, and I keep practicing for myself.
I'm guessing that because of the nature of our culture, then you've probably, we'll get to more in depth in terms of the kind of things you talk about, but you've probably been shamed I'm guessing there are Iranians, maybe other Iranian women, I don't know if men would feel comfortable doing this with a woman, but who say, why are you opening up so much? Why are you talking about our dirty laundry? Yeah. Why are you, do you get basse, enough already with the being so open? Do you get that?
I just received a DM right now, on my Instagram account. What is wrong with you that you have to be seen so much? I get these all the time. I get wonderful feedback, a lot of good energy, but there's also, this kind of feedback because, I don't really do anything crazy on Instagram, so I don't get any crazy feedback. But, these are the kind of feedback that I also get. Why, I talk about self-love and people mistake it for being selfish, for example. So I get that kind of feedback. So I get shamed for being selfish. We talk about whatever we talk about. There's a lot of shame in our culture. People try to shame you to stay quiet, and the more you stay quiet, I always say the more you stay quiet, the more that shame metastasizes.
You are about, a lot of your content is about healing. It's about sharing. It's about talking about issues. And I guess, we do come from it. It's not a stereotype. We've had psychologists on the show say this. We come from a culture that has traditionally rejected therapy, has been like, don't call it that. I am going for counseling. I'm going to get some advice. I am not going for therapy. But that, that's as someone who fundamentally believes in therapy myself, that's I know that's always been a difficult one for me, that culturally Iranians are uncomfortable with the idea of talking through issues or perhaps letting down their guard enough to say, I have issues.
Speaking of therapy, Jian, one of the biggest things that I get shamed on Instagram is the fact that people come and tell me, you're not a therapist. You're not a psychologist. How dare you come and talk about these topics? Who are you to talk about these topics?
And you say what?
And I say, I'm just a woman sharing my experiences. And I bow to you. If you'd like to listen, that's wonderful. And if it resonates with you, great. And if it doesn't, I bow to you and you're welcome to leave. It's just as simple as that. I don't have to defend myself. I'm just sharing my, I'm just sharing my experiences. And if it resonates with someone, great. And if it doesn't, and I don't go into technical stuff, I just talk about my experiences. And I'm not going to get shamed into talking about them.
And you don't say simple. That you're a psychologist, do you?
Never. I actually make the disclaimer. I say I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just the woman talking about my experiences and the experiences of people that I've seen around me. So, and that's, I guess that's my way of truly making connection with other people. I think somebody was saying, we all want to live, in order to live a life well lived, you want to live wholeheartedly. And part of that is, practicing compassion and connection and courage. And, in our culture, the courage to be seen is huge. Nobody really wants to be seen. They're scared to be seen because they're going to get judged big time.
Oh, yeah.
We all know it. And God forbid you're a little bit different or you stand out.
Let me ask you about that courage. And let's go back. You're born in Tehran around the time of the Islamic Revolution. You come to California from Iran as a kid in the mid-'80s with your parents and your younger brother. And you've told me you had a really difficult time assimilating into the U.S. Could you have imagined... Think of Kusha as the kid in the 80s and in the 90s. Could you have imagined you'd be opening up yourself and your life to the world on camera the way you do these days?
Hell to the no. No, I never imagined such a thing. It just happened. It just happened. Especially the kind of background and the kind of family I come from. I never imagined myself doing that. My mom is an intensely private person. And she has great influence in my life. And to this day, whatever my mom says, I do, and I listen because she's always right. But I never imagined that this would happen. I never imagined I would have videos on Instagram. And, my husband is not on social media. He has a great disdain for all social media, and here I am.
He does. He has a disdain for social media.
He's not. He just, he probably has a fake account and comes and checks my stories.
This is interesting. He has a disdain for social media, but
he's an intensely private person. He's intensely private, but he supports me wholeheartedly.
Very nice.
Wholeheartedly, yeah.
But does he watch your stuff? Does he?
He does, and he just does grammatical corrections. And you did this.
but hang on a second. 2 steps back, because you've said you felt like an outcast as a kid, and you've even posted. You've talked about that you still do sometimes.
I always do.
You do.
I feel like a misfit, complete misfit. Absolutely.
So becoming a popular social media personality, it doesn't make you feel less like an outcast?
Not at all. Not at all. I feel like, I was telling my son this other day, as he's going through the challenges, almost approaching middle school, and he was always like, Mom, did you ever feel like a misfit? I'm like, Cameron, I always feel like a misfit. We're all, I'll never fit in. I don't think anyone will ever really fit in. And, there's a really good reason for that. And I'll tell you what it is. Objects fit in. Things fit in. Like lumps of concrete fit in holes. But humans can't fit in unless we're like reduced to lumps. And we like numb ourselves to life and adventure and the possibility of transformation. We can't fit in. We relate, we feel, we experience life firsthand. We have like shifting attitudes and perspectives that we can't fit in. So, and then if we want to fit in, at what cost? Our sanity, our peace, our awakening. How do we squeeze ours? How do we fit in? So I really never wanted to, Groucho Marx has this famous saying, I never wanted to be a member of a club that wants me.
Right.
Just, I rather belong. I wanted belonging, but I didn't want to fit in. I always actually, the people that I resonated with were the misfits too. So all my friends are the same as me.
Yeah, but
much.
you must know this at this point. You come off as quite self-assured in your work on camera. And surely there are people, there are either young women or even me. There are people who watch you and go, this person is so well spoken. You always look amazing. You're immaculate. You are confident. You're in command of the situations you're in with folks. When you're looking at the camera, you've got this, like I say, this self-assurance. You look like the ultimate person who is fitting in.
But you know what? Even the ultimate person that you think fits in, Jian, doesn't fit in. Humans can't fit in. We're just constantly shifting. If you know that about yourself, that's what I'm trying to say. Even all those cool kids that we think fit in, they really don't. They're just trying to belong. I think that's part of it. But when you do the real work, when you do the messy work, when you do the practice of believing and belonging to yourself, like so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with everyone else, I think that's when, you seem like you fit in, because you people are seeing your authentic self, I guess, and they can relate to you and they can connect to you.
Let me come back to that. Let me come back to the
Okay.
the courage that it takes for you to do what you do, because I think it's quite brave to put yourself out there the way you do. But take me back, because you've said you had a really happy childhood in Iran.
Yeah.
Tell me about the process of moving to America and how that was so hard for you.
I just had a beautiful childhood in Iran, surrounded by a large family, loving family members that doted on me. And then we came to the States and there was no one. It was just the four of us, my mom and dad and my younger brother. And my parents just never quite got adjusted to this immigrant life. They had left their comfortable, cushy life and they had to adjust, and it was very, very difficult for them to adjust. And we didn't have any family here. So I mean, it was just like, the cultural assimilation was a little bit tough for me. I was such a Persian. I was always like, even though I left Iran at such a younger age, I'm like one of those, I'm still like, I feel like I'm like kind of fresh off the boat. I'm kind of foggy.
You do?
I feel that. I'm very Persian.
But you're also very American too. I mean, you don't have much. You don't have an accent. You're,
Right.
You're very steeped in American culture. A lot of your work you've done has nothing to do with the Iranian community in some cases, right?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I had a hard time assimilating. I really did have a hard time adjusting. Again, it was that lack of belonging. I no longer belonged to a larger community, and it was really difficult for a few years for me. The immigration journey, I guess, is that what you call it? It was very difficult for me.
You end up becoming this successful young woman in the banking industry, which you're kind of an overachiever, right? I mean, let's get that out of the way. You were probably very focused at school. You did really well. You were, I don't know, valedictorian.
No, I wasn't valedictorian.
Okay.
But I, again, that Persian mentality where you have to be enough. If you have certain accolades, if you get this title, if you're pretty enough, if you're thin enough, if you marry the perfect person, you'll be enough. So,
Yes.
I went the correct route. I try to do everything so I can be perfect so that there would be no shame in my game.
So you become the VP. You become a VP in the banking industry. You become this successful person. You're probably making a bunch of money. Your parents are probably proud of you. And
They're very proud.
And then there's the breaking point where you pivot to becoming a photographer.
I know. How does that work? Right?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think is you probably, I haven't talked to you about this, but I'm imagining, I mean, I don't know if there's a super tradition, especially going back, say, 20 years or whatever, of Iranian women being photographers, especially in the eyes of your parents, going from being a banker. So how did that go down?
I didn't know of any Iranian women that were photographers. And I remember coming home one day, I used to take pictures of my nieces and nephews and my best friends, and knew that I was really good at this. This is my calling. I knew deep down. And I'd known for a very, very long time. But, having the courage to sort of quit my job and, tell my parents, listen, this is what I'm going to do. For the first time in my life, I did something that was right for me. And I didn't care what the outcome was going to be. That was the first time in my life. And it was the best decision that I've ever made. And I think if you're passionate about something, you work so hard, you don't even realize the hours of the day that you're putting into something, and everything else will follow. And so that's what happened. I went home one day and I said, guess what, guys? I'm quitting my job. I'm going to become a photographer. That wasn't the first time I'd shocked my parents. I had announced that I wasn't going to law school in the 11th hour of having to go to law school. So that was the first shock to my parents. Then this came. And this time I remember my mom, she's so funny. She's like, Azizam, آخه نمیدونم. You're the vice president. آخه mommy, you're the vice president. یعنی چی? I said, Mom, I promise I've never embarrassed you. I'm not going to embarrass you. It was very foreign to them. It was just, what do you mean you're going to become a photographer? And I think they had this image of, the sweaty photographer, back in the old country. Like they just couldn't put it together. So I got a little resistance from my family, from my husband's family, from everyone.
So you were already married, and
I was already married.
You're married. You got this successful marriage. You're VP at a bank, and it's like, all right, it's going to be interpreted, even though you were far too young for it to be called this, but like as some kind of midlife crisis. She's suddenly
no, it was very
leaving.
Very young. It wasn't a midlife crisis.
No, I know. It's like the equivalent of like she's leaving the stable life to try. She's going Princess Margaret on us. She's gonna like and
I tell you, I remember it was a very difficult decision. I felt very passionate about it, but you know what? There was these like little old voices in my head. Are you doing the right thing? Oh my God, what if you fail? What if people laugh at you? And I remember I was at a wedding one night, and I was in the bathroom stall, and a girl that I knew that was a very successful dentist who loved photography at the time was outside. She didn't know that I was in the bathroom. Someone came up and said, "So-and-so, June, are you the one that's quitting your job to become a photographer?" That's what I heard. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I would never. Who would do that?" And imagine, I was in the bathroom stall listening to this, and I was mortified, and I had just a big lump in my throat. And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? And people are going to ridicule me. And I remember I had my my shoulders were down, my body language was very, very apparent that I was just not in a good state. I came and sat next to my mom. I said, "Mommy, this just happened." And she looked at me and gave me the best advice. This is one advice I'll never forget. She said, "Roqe, when you first start out with anything, everyone will criticize you. Everyone will transfer their own fears and projections on you.
Yeah.
You keep your head down, focus, and just keep going. And I promise you, when you reach a point in your career where you're extremely successful, the very same people that were the naysayers are going to kiss your behind." Those were her exact words. And that's exactly what happened, Jian. Exactly. She called it. That's exactly what happened. Those same people.
You don't just go on to become a photographer. And for those who don't know you and your story, you become an extremely successful photographer. And I still think about that moment. But so looking, if you will, through the lens of where you've come to now, it seems like an obvious choice. But in that moment, you weren't yet an extremely successful photographer. In fact, you had there was no evidence that you were even great at this, right? It wasn't like you'd been, playing guitar in the basement for the last 20 years and everybody's been talking about how great you are. So when you say to your mom, "I promise you, I will be successful at this," on what basis? I mean, how did you know that?
Stupidity. I don't know. I just felt very passionate about it. And I just, deep down in my heart, I knew that I had a calling for this. I knew that I could do it. And in all honesty, when I focus on something, I do it. And because I do things that I'm passionate about. And it takes me a while, and I sort of redefine myself every decade, and I get tired and I do something different. And I have these resting moments where I'm doing nothing. I don't just take on any job. I don't just take on any project. I don't say, I want to do this now. I really focus and I go within and I really think about what is my calling? What's my next step? And then when I make a decision, I'm all in.
All right, let me ask you a little bit about photography before we get back to Kusha's Corner and your social media success. Looking at your photos, I mean, it is. I don't believe that anybody would look at your work and think anything other than this is dazzling. This is incredible work. That said, I'm always curious about photographers in this day and age because I wonder about what the role of a professional photographer is in a world today as opposed to, say, even 2 decades ago, maybe even a decade ago. what is the role of a professional photographer in a world where everyone thinks they're a photographer and is using their smartphones and is posting selfies on Instagram? It would seem like a job. It would seem like a vocation. It would seem like a direction that would be out of date, that would expire because everybody sort of shrugs and goes, well, I know how to take pictures. What is your role, and how have you distinguished yourself? Why do your photos look so much better?
This is going to sound, at the risk of sounding very full of myself, but what the heck, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
I think that the difference is discernment and taste. I think a lot of times people may know how to use a gadget. They might use a camera, but it's not about the camera. It's not about the iPhone. It's about someone that has discernment and has taste to see you and capture you in the best light possible, pun intended. So that's what it is. I mean, you're not hiring me for my photography skills. You're hiring for my taste and my perspective. And I often say a lot of times my pictures are more about me than about other people. It's just that image that I want to convey. And I do it well. And people think that perfect people come to me for pictures, but no, they're actually ordinary people, you know, and I really see the extraordinary in them. And that's what I capture.
But if you take a picture, say you're taking a picture of a coup, of a mountain, you know, how do you bring taste to that? Isn't it a mountain?
That's why I don't take pictures of mountains. I take pictures of people.
I see.
I'm interested in people. In fact,
what's the difference?
Come on, people.
Well, I'm asking you. You tell me. Is it that people the mountain is perfect and the people are imperfect?
No, it's just that you capture a lot more than what they look like. It's a glance. It's the light in their eye. It's something that they're not saying. It all comes through, and everyone has a story. And sometimes when you actually take their picture, it tells a lot of stories about them.
Well, let me ask it a different way then, because you've touched on it. You did a video at one point where you said I don't know if you remember saying this, but you said it's really important for you to get to know someone in order to photograph them as well as you can. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking, well, yeah, that sounds right. And then I thought, well, hang on a second. Why? How does knowing them affect what your lens sees or how you set them up? Even if you're bringing that taste to your game, what does knowing them change?
I always have a few consultations. You know how you have pre-interviews with people to kind of get a feel for them?
Sure.
That's what I do when I take photographs. I never walk into a photography session blind, ever. Unlike my car talks. But I like to get to know people and establish a connection with them first. Because when they feel connected with me, they sort of have their guards down and they allow me to see them the way they want to be seen. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So the more I get to know them, the more they get to know me, there's less of a wall. And they realize that I really come from a place of no judgment. I'm not judging them when they're posing. I'm not judging them when they're yelling at their husband because they're nervous during the photo shoot and the husband's totally checked out and he doesn't want to be there. I'm not judging any of that. So they feel a lot more relaxed and they really let themselves be seen.
You photographed some very well-known figures, some who are icons that are no longer with us. I mentioned Kobe Bryant. Kusha, do you have a different process when it comes to those who have been photographed thousands of times? I mean,
no.
If I was going to interview Kobe Bryant, I go, well, this guy's done thousands of interviews. How am I going to make this different? So do you think, how can I get something out of Kobe that thousands of others have not when you think about photographing him?
I'll be very, very honest with you. The thought never crossed my mind. I just went in it and just was very present and thought, let's just see what we can get today. And, maybe I would have done better if I thought that. But I was just very, very confident that we were going to get something really, really good that day. And every time we did. Unfortunately, I can't show those images, but I never thought about it too much. I would love to give you a much more interesting answer. But
no, I think that's a very interesting answer in and of itself. It doesn't matter who the subject is, as long as you get a sense of them. You
the
don't,
same
you don't
process
think
for
about,
everyone.
Right.
Actually, I think that's what made them comfortable with me. I think I had, and I had like for one time, I had this really famous sports announcer. I'm so ashamed that I can't remember his name right now.
Not that
he's really
famous, I guess. Yeah.
But no, he's actually very famous. It's old age or something. But anyways, but you know, I actually, and everybody was so afraid because he's very intimidating, and doesn't have patience for pictures, as most men really don't. They don't have time. They don't like to sit in. But what I was really, really good at was...
Sorry, hang on a second. You're saying it breaks down on gender lines? Who's got patience being photographed?
I think so. Women love pictures. Women love to be photographed. But what I find is our biggest challenge is, first of all, you know, I photograph a lot of families, for example, is convincing men to want to be photographed. Because, first of all, men don't think they're that attractive. And if you don't think you're that attractive, you don't want to be in front of the lens. And most men really don't think they're that great.
Interesting.
They really don't.
and women do think they're attractive?
And women do. Women love pictures, you know. So I always tell, you know, my subjects, the women who come to me, I say, leave the men to me. Don't worry about it. We got this. And sure enough, when I get to the shoot, and it's usually, I haven't met the guys, I've met the women usually. I know when we get to the shoot, you know, I don't know, I have a way of disarming the guys, and they end up staying for the photo shoot for 2 hours, and we get great pictures.
Interesting.
I don't know.
That's really interesting. And now that I think about it, I mean, I guess that's true. I don't know a lot of guys who want to be in. I don't really like photos of myself.
It's rare. It's rare. And again, it's about being vulnerable. It's about being seen. Most men don't want to be vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, actually. Now, I know because I hate being in front of the camera as much as it doesn't seem like it, but I really don't like being photographed. I feel really awkward, and then I know how my subjects feel.
Does it matter to you where you are when you're taking photos? There's on your website, there's this beautiful set of photos from Shiraz, from I guess 2017 when you were traveling in Iran. I was going to say, I'm going to ask you what it's like photographing in your home country in Iran. But does it? I mean, in general, do you? If I set up a photo session with you, would you care where it is? Does it change how you do your job?
Yes, I have to check out the location always. I have to know exactly where I'm photographing, because a lot of times I would use ambient light, and I follow the light. Where there's good light, there's going to be great photos.
So why was Iran so inspirational?
It was just, I hadn't been there for 20-something years, more than that. And it was just reconnecting with mother, reconnecting with home. It was, I mean, I get teary-eyed just thinking about it right now. It was just, again, I felt like just going back to somewhere that I truly belonged. And so it was a very, very special time. And it was my first time there with my children. And seeing Iran through their eyes was just very, very special. I got to tell you, I have a funny story about going to Persepolis, though. It wasn't the smartest move. I went there. I took my kids there like in the middle of July. In fact, we took great pictures because no other person in their right mind showed up at the Persepolis that time of the year. So it was just us. It was, I don't know, it was like 110 degrees, and but we took great shots. So
you grew up in Tehran, right?
I did.
So even when you go back and you're in a place like Shiraz, you feel more of a sense of belonging than you do in California, say?
There's just so much. People are just so loving, and you know, what's the word for bosafa? Is there a word for bosafa in English?
With
I don't know what bosafa is in English, but you know, I it just reminded me of my...
برdi دیگه با این.
That's
a callback. More words that we don't have in English.
Okay, there are three words that I can never translate. One is aberu.
Yeah.
One is basafa. And one is tarof.
Tarof. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're concepts.
Really
they're concepts.
there
isn't. Yeah, they don't exist. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I guess the funny thing is I really don't know very many because my family's kind of all over the world now. I don't really have that many people back home. So I really don't, it's not like I'm going back to family, but there's just, I don't know, even I connect with the streets. I connect with the trees. I guess it's like my memory of my dad is very much alive there. So I just connect on a very deep level. Going back to Iran every time.
Just before I leave the photography space, because
sure.
I just speaking of Iranians and self-consciousness, in your experience photographing Iranians, are they more like OCD, like the makeup has to be right and the hair has to be perfect and stuff, than because that would be my suspicion if I were to generalize, but I mean, is that true?
Not really. That wasn't my experience. I think everyone's the same. When everyone shows up in front of the camera, again, they're very vulnerable. They see their friends' pictures. They want to be just as perfect. They're very afraid that their pictures are not going to come out well. It does every time. I think, and then they spend about, half hour, 45 minutes with me, and then we end up having the best time, best experience. They put their guards down, and all that stuff goes out the door. No, but generally it's all the same for everyone. Not just for Persians, surprisingly.
Tell me about the segue. Tell me about why did you go from being this person who's got a career chugging along as this successful photographer to starting to include yourself in the images that you would put out there, and then to begin recording videos? What was the evolution?
Maybe it was midlife crisis. Maybe it was midlife crisis.
You're still too young for that. Come on.
I'm trying to. What it was is, I went through that and I experienced a lot of success, and then there was a point where that image wasn't even serving me anymore. The photographer, everywhere I went, ooh, she's the photographer, but it wasn't serving me anymore. And all these images, all my life that, you have to be this to be enough. You have to be this. You have to be this. None of it was serving me anymore. So I went into a contemplative.
Contemplative,
yeah. One of those words I can't say. I had to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of introspection, get really messy, soften sort of into the hard edges of life, not shy away from discomfort, all that stuff that, us Persians don't really do that much, dig deep into my psyche, figure out my deepest fears, make friends with being a little bit more vulnerable, make friends with being more uncomfortable, start, building boundaries, start cultivating more compassion, stop comparing myself to other people so much. And then a stronger me came out of it. I felt like I was a little bit more, every day I was a little bit more authentically empowered. And that took a couple of years. I mean, I just basically shut it down. I wasn't photographing anyone. I was just doing a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation, a lot of introspection, which, again, I think a lot of us don't really have the opportunity or the desire to do.
But is putting yourself in front of the camera part of the catharsis, part of the healing?
No, it wasn't actually part of the healing. I'm sorry, I didn't continue to what I was saying. So once I got to that stage, I realized, and there's no stage, but once I got to this particular point, I realized, there's a lot of people that are experiencing what I'm experiencing. When I would talk to people and we would have these like moments of connection, be like, that's exactly how I feel. And I thought, what? We talk about where we get our nails done. We talk about everyone's on Instagram talking about their shoes, about their dresses, tagging this person, talking about superficial things. Why not talk about some real deep topics. What's wrong with that? What's wrong about sharing something, where there's like points of connection with people?
Do you remember the first topic that you talked about where you realized, whoa, there's an audience that really wants to engage at this level?
Yes, I had a car talk, and I think I was talking about how we listen to say something versus really listening to hold space for someone. And we respond out of our discomfort, not to, again, hold space for someone. And when I talked about that, the amount of comments that started coming in was crazy. It was just, I just saw this response that I'd never seen before. And I knew I was onto something.
Wow. Say that again. So the difference between listening to save a space for someone versus listening to think about what the response is going to be, to what your response is going to be.
Oftentimes, we want to be there. Like, let's say we want to be there for our friends.
Right.
Jian, you are talking to me about something, opening up, and I'm listening to you.
Yes.
And a lot of times we haven't learned to hold space for people and just be present with their experience exactly as it is. And just stay quiet and just have our hand on their shoulder.
Ushering a prescription as quick as possible for them and telling them what to...
Because ushering a prescription is really not about them. It's about our own discomfort with the subject matter. It's about our own fears. It's about our own projections. It's about the fact that all of a sudden we're so uncomfortable with our own sensations that we want to prescribe something for the other person.
Well, wait a minute though. If you say I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety, this has been really difficult for me, and I say, have you tried Bikram Yoga? Why is that about my discomfort? Why isn't that coming up with an idea that has worked for me?
Because at that moment, that person might not want to fix. They just want to talk.
Right.
I think a lot of times
I already knew the answer to that. I was trying to be honest, when I've gone through some really difficult things in my life, the thing that shocked me the most was that everyone had a prescription and they were all different.
Exactly.
Brother, you should try Jesus Christ, or yoga, or these pills, or this or that. And it's just like, okay, enough already. Thank you, everybody.
Instead of saying, Jian, what's causing this anxiety? What's going on with you?
Right.
You want to talk about it? And just sitting there and holding space quietly. I can have my hand on your shoulder and just offering my presence may be all that you need at that moment, not a quick fix.
Who is your audience?
My audience, you'd be surprised. It ranges from 18-year-old girls to 55-year-old, 60-year-old grandmothers.
Is it mostly women?
It's everybody. It used to be mostly women. Men are quickly finding my page and actually coming on and expressing their opinions. And I think it's definitely a deeper audience. That's for sure. It's people that are a little bit more. They're critical thinkers. They're, I guess they're looking for some meaning in their life.
I mean, it's also just fun sometimes too. It's not
you got to make it fun. You got to have balance.
Not to give people the wrong idea that it can be super fun and funny. Heavy. But as the audience has grown, has your sense of responsibility or the pressure you feel around the topics you choose or what you're going to say or do changed? I mean,
I don't really feel pressure. I talk about things that I want to talk about. Obviously, I like to use discernment and think about what my intention is for posting something. I always examine my intention. I set an intention.
So you did a recent thing. You and your friend Massa did a recent.
You have to bring on Massa.
Well, it's very entertaining. She's great.
I love her.
Yeah. So I think it was about love connections or something. Does that make sense?
What are we talking about? No, which one? We talk about it. We talk about a lot of stuff.
Is that a love connection?
We need our own show. We need our own reality show, Massa and I. That's what we need. It would be crazy.
So when you say you think about what your intention is, so first of all, sorry, let me just figure this out. So do you book it like, hey, Maximini, I'm going to do a car talk with you. Meet me in the car at 2 p.m. and then you think about what the topic's going to be. How does it work?
I swear to God, everything is just worked out so organically. I would love to think that I'm that organized, and I'm not. It just, everything just keeps happening organically. I don't know. It just happened that once Masa and I were talking about love languages and the different languages of love, which is like acts of service and physical touch and gift giving. We're each saying what our language, love language was, right?
Yeah.
So I turned around and I said, I don't know, the conversation somehow led to Max Amini. I'd never talked to Max Amini. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. And I said, that comedian Max Amini says this. And so apparently someone sent it to Max Amini. He went and saw my page. And according to him, he fell in love with my page and the message of my page. So he reached out and said, that was really funny. I loved it. And we just got to talking and said, hey, Max, want to come on, join us on our car talk? I'll bring Masa. And that's how it happened. We met for like 5 minutes before we actually all hopped in the car. We had never seen each other before. And the conversation just happened organic. It just flowed. And we taped it for 40 minutes straight, and that's exactly what it was.
You know what's so amazing about, there's a lot of things that I hate about the internet and social media. I find incredibly toxic and damaging and, all kinds of things. But I have to say, this is so 21st century. Like, you couldn't do this 30 years ago.
No,
if you would have to pitch this to a TV network, and then they'd have to create a set and put, you're a photographer, this, you would have to then they'd create a car, and then they would micromanage it, and there would be an executive producer saying, no, you should sit on this side, and we're going to book Max Amini, and we have to tell him what he's going to say. And it just wouldn't, and yet you're doing this, and it's caught fire. There's people who want to watch this. They're interested. They're genuinely excited. No, I'm not shocked at all. I'm just saying this is the best part of what new media has enabled. To me, this is the best part. Is that someone like you can, who should have an audience, because you're doing and saying things that are helpful to people and that people want to see and hear. You can have a platform now that you would, not only would you have to audition for, or try and, or somebody would have to, sort of make you a kingmaker for you to have that platform, but you wouldn't even necessarily be able to do it in such an organic way. It would be micromanaged, like I said. There'd be some network, doing focus groups on what you should be, what the topic should be. So it's amazing.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, Jian, but the conversations with Masa and I, actually, the first time I remember having a car talk with Masa, which happened again very organically. We were at a restaurant, and she said something to me which I'd never known. I said, Masa, we're going to go in the car and you're going to repeat what you just told me, because it was shocking. And I'd known her for a while, but what I didn't know is she had been engaged 4 times and married 3 times. She's on her 3rd husband. And she was unapologetic and very proud of her experience. And she shared this experience in the most beautiful, unapologetic, humorous way possible. And, that stigma of divorce in our culture, it was just a woman coming out and standing in her power and saying, yes, I've been married 3 times. And guess what? Anything in life that you do, they encourage you to do it over and over again. And they encourage you to fail at it. And they say, get up and do it again. But how come we only can be married once and we get judged for it if we get divorced? And she came and said this, and I thought this was powerful. This is what I want my Iranian audience to hear. And it's not about, my page, just like the podcast that you have, Jian. It's a connective tissue between all Iranians, the Iran, inside Iran, outside of Iran. It's not about people in Iran. It's about everybody. And I wanted women to hear this, because we're constantly shamed for everything that we do. And so these are the kind of subjects that I wanted to talk about in a very simple way. I don't want to have some esoteric language. I don't want to be complicated. I want to make it funny, and I want to make it simple, but get the point across.
And what have you learned about people? If you can Obviously, this is an educational journey for you, too. What have you learned about people by starting this channel?
I've learned that everyone takes things very, very personally. They can't sit in their own discomfort. People get very uncomfortable very quickly. They get uncomfortable very, very quickly. And us Iranians, the amount of, again, we shame a lot. When we go into that uncomfortable mode, we turn back and shame other people. I've learned that we are really good at giving a lot of love, but also we shame each other quite a bit. I've also learned that people really struggle with the concept of being alone.
How did you learn that?
Quite a bit. I get the DMs that I get. People are constantly wanting to find belonging outside of themselves. We've never been taught that in order to truly belong, we gotta, you gotta become friends with yourself. You gotta make friends with yourself. You're your only true love and connection. And so people have a really difficult time. So they find it through, and we talk about dating a lot. I start by talking, about relationships and dating, because that's actually a way to get to know ourselves better.
Yeah.
When you're in that kind of a situation, that actually forces you become so vulnerable. It forces you to look within. It's an opportunity. It's an invitation for you to look within and try to get to know yourself better.
We had, do you know who Tina Parsamand is? She does
Unfortunately not, I don't.
She does an Instagram show called Insight with Tina Parsa. But anyway, she's a clinical psychologist. She's living in Tehran now. And, we hear so much about what's happening in Iran, the Jang and like the explosions and assassinations and, economic strife and COVID and I asked her, well, what's the number one thing that people come to you for as a psychologist, as a therapist? And she said, relationships. Yeah.
Relationships. That's it. That's all people want to talk about. In fact, I'm not a relationship advisor. That's not what I've been married for as long as I remember. I haven't been in the dating world. I'm not here to, but the reason we talk about relationships a lot on my page, Masana talk about, is because it's actually the first step to getting to know yourself. It's always like someone else instigates that for you to kind of look within. Because my page is really about more like self-awareness and self-compassion. It's about this getting to know oneself. It's not really about finding happiness with another person. If you're happy, then you can share your happiness with another person. But another person is not going to bring happiness to you. It's going to be temporary if you're not happy with who you are and your circumstances exactly as they are.
But it can be so good for a temporary while when they bring happiness.
It is. It is really better than any drug. It really is. But it's short-lived. It really is. If you're if you're not rooted in yourself, it's just temporary. It's like any other distraction, Jian. It really is. Yeah. And we're constantly trying to distract ourselves to not get uncomfortable with shopping, with alcohol, with drugs, with sex, with this, with that. We try to fill up any white space in our life, not to think about anything, because we're so constantly running away from ourselves.
Are there places you won't go in your conversations? I mean, you don't do anything. I'm not talking about like offensive,
no,
like racist or something. I'm just saying, is there some kind of content that you just kind of think I don't want to?
There's a lot of content. Listen. At the end of the day, I'm a very conservative Persian girl. There's a lot. I always. There are probably. I don't talk about politics very much,
I noticed
especially that. in our divided country right now. I just don't. I've learned my lesson. I just don't, because listen, I'm not going to change anyone's mind.
Right.
I'm not changing anyone's mind. My people have their own opinion. The other half, I bow to their opinion as well. They have every right to their opinion. And everyone's pretty much made up their mind. No one.
But I saw at some point you were quite outspoken about calling yourself an immigrant, and I thought that's probably not going to go over so well in parts of Orange County. That's.
No, pretty much everyone knows I'm an immigrant in Orange County, and I'm pretty well known in Orange County. Yeah, I don't think that was that. And there are so many of us here, so no, I don't think that was going to be a problem.
That I guess I should explain. You were saying that in the context of taking a political position that would have been a liberal position.
Appreciate the ban.
That's
I didn't
right. The
appreciate
travel
the
ban,
Muslim ban.
the Muslim ban, and that.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a liberal position. I just think that's a human. I mean, that's just like, anyone with some morals would agree that was just, the ban was immoral.
Would Masa agree?
You have to ask NASA.
Because I know I've watched enough of your videos to get the sense she likes Trump.
You have to ask NASA about her opinions.
How do you decide if you're going to speak in? Most of your Kusha's Corner content is in English, but you're obviously very fluent in Persian, in Farsi. How do you decide if you're going to do English or Persian?
This was supposed to be a travel blog. It was the English-speaking page, and then all the Hambatans, my Iranian friends, started following this page.
Right.
And there's something very contagious about their energy, and I was getting so much love, and they're so sweet. And like, Kusha, speak more Farsi, please. We want to understand. And how could I say no to them? And then before and then I went to Iran. I was feeling the vibe. I was just like, I got really, after all these years, learned, to write and read Farsi a little bit, worked on that a little bit more and more. I made horrible mistakes. People were making fun of me when I was writing Farsi, and even saying stuff. I was saying everything incorrectly. And then just started the flow. And then before you know it, I was speaking more Farsi and writing more Farsi than I was English. It's just recently that I've sort of try to maintain a balance again. But then I was being shamed for speaking English after a while.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing. You were asking me, what do you get shamed most? When we speak English, people try to shame us. They try to think that we are all kinds. They accuse us of all kinds of things.
Like what? What's wrong?
It's a no-win situation.
What's wrong with speaking English?
Okay, so when I'm speaking Farsi, the Iranians here, they think you're sort of fobby, and my longtime friends would snobbishly say, well, I would read your content, but it's in Farsi, and I have trouble reading Farsi, as if like they were born in Paris and moved here like 80 years ago. So there was that, they would snub me a little bit. When I would speak English, all the Iranians would think that I'm just trying to get away from my culture and pretend. So there's like this no-win situation, you can't win with anyone, I would listen to Persian music, and my friends here would be like, they have a word for that. I know Shaya knows this word. She's so dutchy. She listens to like Persian music, Javad, exactly. I didn't want to say it.
Also a word that I don't think there's an English equivalent to.
There is.
Why didn't you want to say that? It's not a dirty word, is it?
I don't know. No, but if I listen, but that's part of me. I enjoy it. I'm just, when I listen to Persian music, there's something that speaks to me. I love that. So there's just so much judgment.
Can I
that's why I say I'm a misfit.
Can I tell you the best thing? One of my favorite things doing Roqe is getting messages or emails or people commenting who are listening in Iran. I don't know why. I do know why. I mean, because you really get the sense of that the world isn't as big as it needs to be, right? Or that it has been, and that how that connective tissue, that commonality. I get a buzz out of it. I have to imagine you have a lot of people in Iran now following you. Yeah.
I do. I think about 30% of my audience are people inside of Iran. And, the cool thing is, people, and those are the people that are very opinionated. If you look at my comment section, it's all in Farsi. It's because those are the very people that are, making their opinions known. I think maybe part of it is because Instagram is really the only social media platform right now in Iran. So there's a lot more, they're all on there. Maybe here, people watch your stories, or they they see your post. They're very indifferent. They don't say anything. They're actively watching, but they don't comment. But Iranians in Iran, they will make themselves heard.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they give you a lot of love. They give you a lot of, whatever, mostly love. I get a lot of love on my page. I get a lot of love, I got to tell you. It's a loving
You
page.
do.
It's all
You do. I
very
see
positive.
that. I see that. People are big fans of you and big fans of what you do. And I have to say, first of all, I'm starting to. I'm like, you're poor you. You're sitting in a car.
I'm good.
Have you opened the window a little bit or something? Like, I mean, don't
you
suffocate.
worry about it. I'm all set. I have my coffee. I have my air conditioner. Okay. I'm a pro at this.
Well, you're not idling. That's bad for the environment, So I won't keep you forever. It has been such a joy to speak to you. Really, truly, I've been looking forward to this. There's something that I know you've dealt with difficult times in your life. You've intimated it a few times through this interview where you said, I needed to heal. I went through this period, etc. You wrote something in April 2017 on one of your platforms that I jotted down. I think you were speaking to or of your son, and you said, I hope I can teach him to see that it is necessary to let things go, simply for the reason that they are heavy. So let them go. Let go of them, and tie no weights to your ankles. I hope I can learn this myself. Mm-hmm. I love that, what you wrote there. I want you to tell me, if you can, what inspired you to write that or what that means to you today.
Hanging on to stories we make up in our head that weigh us down. Hanging on to stories from the past and hanging on to stories from our envisioned future that really weigh us down. When practicing presence is really practicing self-compassion. Just being in this moment, just now, letting go of all expectations, all the weight, everything that's just pulling us down. And I keep practicing that every single moment to be a little bit more present. Meditation is a huge part of my life. And self-compassion. Every time I'm hard on myself, every time I have that heavy weight, to come back and talk in a very loving way to myself and just tell myself, listen, you're imperfect, but you're enough. Let go of the story. Let it go.
And I'm assuming let go of things from your past that made you angry, or that people that you've been angry at, or that kind of weight that you've carried?
Coming to peace with it, befriending it, forgiving it, but also forgiving the parts that can't forgive yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
Forgiving, forgiveness, I always tell myself, forgive, and if you can't forgive, that's okay. Forgive the parts that can't forgive just yet. So when you do that, you release the pressure, you release the weight. There's no pressure to even forgive. I can't forgive right now. I'm okay with not forgiving, and I'm going to love the parts that I can't forgive. And that takes pressure. That's just releasing. When I'm in yoga, a lot of times our teacher would say, I practice a lot of Bikram Yoga. And in fact, that's what I miss most about in this times of COVID, is that I can't be in my yoga studio.
Hot yoga, yeah.
Hot yoga, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And so one of the things, and that was therapy. That's cheap therapy right there, is hot yoga. But when I was in there, in the midst of that heat, and this is the difference between Bikram yoga and regular yoga. In Bikram yoga, you're in intense heat. The lights are, all the way up. There is this annoying teacher yelling at you pretty much.
Yeah, it's
to do these poses for like an hour and a half, these 26 poses, versus regular yoga where you go in, they're playing some beautiful music and everything is ideal and everything's really supposed to sort of stroke your ego in a way, right? So in regular yoga, you come out and there's incense, there's music, you come out, relax, and then there's a car that pulls over right when you're driving out. and pulls in front of you, and you forget all that, and you start honking.
I was wondering where you're going.
You lose all your peace. And then there's Bikram Yoga, right? There's like the lights are on, the annoying teacher is shouting at you, there's intense heat, and you learn to become comfortable in your discomfort. So if you can become comfortable in that situation, you can become comfortable anywhere. So when you're in that parking lot, the car pulls in front of you, and they honk and they give you the middle finger, guess what? You look at them, you're like, namaste. I've been through worse. This is nothing.
I did Bikram pretty intensely for a few years,
Did you really?
Yeah. دیگه خسته شدم حوصله ندارم دیگه برم اونجا عرق و دیگه enough already.
No, then this would be a good interview if I told you what Bikram himself said to me one time. Oh boy. But because everyone was like, how could you practice Bikram? And I said, Bikram is actually, it's one of the best gifts of my life. Bikram Yoga was one of the best gifts that life could have thrown my way. So,
Roqe began the reason I found it difficult is because I sweat a lot, and so first of all you got to be ready for it. So you got to go half an hour before and get shavasana and get prepared, and then it's like 90 minutes, and then afterwards you have to take a shower, and you have to. I mean, it's like a 3-hour excursion. Who can afford this time? I go to the gym, I get right on the treadmill, I'm done. An hour, boom. That's.
But this is like it's. Oh my God! But it's the transformation and what it does for your body is phenomenal. So, anyways, I'm sorry. You can't. I mean, I can't wait. I'm counting the minutes so I can get back into that hot studio.
I know.
I'm addicted.
I am so grateful for the time you spend. Listen, I know you have no roadmap. You've made that very clear. It's all just you go, you follow, as we say in Canada with hockey references. You follow the puck. You're just following the puck with your successful little show and stuff. But do you have a sense of where you? I mean, do you want to do Kusha's Corner for years? Do you feel like this is the calling that you've found for yourself at this point in your life?
I have no idea. We're just going to have to take it a day at a time.
A day at a time?
A day at a time.
Like you might end it tomorrow? Come on.
You listen. Okay, a month at a time. I don't know.
Give me a year. You're going to do it for at least another year.
We'll see how it goes. I think it's gonna go in an interesting direction. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you for this today. What a joy! What a pleasure. خیلی متشکرم. You're of course you're so accessible to talk to. I only wish my voice wasn't in this over the last hours. We just need yours. It's such a great voice to listen to, and your insights and the work you've done is so valuable. Thank you for doing it, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Jian. It was my pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Kusha Alagband is a renowned photographer, host of the popular internet series Kusha's Corner. Kusha joined us from Newport Beach, California today. That was a fun conversation. That went in a number of different directions. I knew she would be accessible to speak to, and she certainly was. That was great. Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Keon have their mics back on. Hello.
Hi. Kusha, she's a character. I liked her. Yeah. You know what it is?
Certainly a character.
I'm always interested to hear how other Iranians immigrated to, the new homes and how they built their life. So it's always nice to hear different perspectives from that.
She has certainly done, when you clearly an A-type personality and she said perfectionist and all that. And I would only guess her parents are very proud of her, no doubt, for the kind of success that she's had. Captain Reza?
Yeah, I like when she was talking about being a misfit and really like her perspective on nobody really fits in. Everybody's just shifting
everyone's
around.
A misfit. I love
everyone's
that.
a misfit. It was beautiful. I loved it. She was truth be told, going into the interview, I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't think that it would be my cup of tea, really, because our target demographic probably is different. But I really enjoyed it. I really, truly enjoyed it. Yeah, she had a different perspective.
Her
Fresh.
target demographic is not captains. So, you know.
Yeah, 50-year-old men.
As a captain of misfits.
That's right, captain of misfits.
Shaya? Shaya Jun?
Aziza, I really like the interview, and also I really like that point that you brought up about the for modern technology,
Yes.
that we can use them in a good way to, for example, 10 years ago it was
Yes,
impossible
yes.
to
She's reaching people and resonating with folks on platforms that didn't exist and she wouldn't have been able to use 20 years ago, for sure. And so people would be missing out on what they're loving so much about Kusha.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also I have a question from you, Jian.
Yes, Shaya.
I think 3 episodes ago you said that you feel good that you have some audience from Iran, from inside.
Yeah, I said it just
And
now
you
with Kusha.
Yes,
Yeah,
and yes, because you just mentioned it.
yeah.
It came to my mind that when you had the previous shows, for example, on CBC,
Yes.
you didn't have any follower from Iran.
Yes, but not really. I mean, they were as successful as the previous shows I had on big networks were. They actually were not as, the audience was nowhere near as diverse or international. I mean, some people with a network like CBC, some people can tune in and do so from different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. But the percentage of the audience, like the pie that is the audience for Roqe, I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, we intend to be, and it's being borne out so far that we are an international show. I mean, there's a slight percentage higher for Canada and North America of our audience, but as I've mentioned a number of times, our audience is in Germany, our audience is in Australia, our audience is in Iran, and that's not only exciting and interesting, but it kind of I was going to say, F's with your mind a little bit, in the sense that you have to think about when you're broadcasting, when you're doing programming, at least in my experience, you're imagining your audience. So if you're doing a local show, you're talking to the people of your town or your city. Yes. And if you're doing a national program, or that's your intention, you're talking to a national audience. So it's an interesting thing to be imagining an international audience with every question, with every comment, with every idea, with every little talk that we have here, to be going, how's this going down in Germany? What's an Australian person going to invest in, is this interesting to someone in the Canadian West, and also somebody who's listening in the UK? And Iran is a whole other bag. So that's totally interesting for me. And as I said to Kusha, I get such a buzz out of getting those messages from Iran.
Getting such a buzz is like getting goosebumps.
It's different from goosebumps. It's different from goosebumps. Getting a buzz is like,
because, for example,
excitement. You get excitement,
Well, when I, for example, sometimes when I use pot, my friend asked me, "Did you get a buzz?"
You mean smoke pot? Yeah.
Smoke pot. Yeah. My friend asked me, "Did you get any buzz?"
But
is it the same?
It's not exactly the same. I mean, for an expert opinion on that kind of buzz, you'd have to talk to Keon. But
swear to God.
I mean, there isn't a conversation we can have past 9 o'clock on the phone where she doesn't say, "By the way, I'm sorry, I'm really stoned."
There's only 1 week out of every month, Jian. You know that week where I need to be.
No, imagine this, Shaya. Imagine that somebody you're very attracted to, that you're, and that you've just met, and that you're really kind of excited about. You wonder where it's going. You keep looking at pictures of the person. You're really, super excited, right? And then you get a message from them, a really good message from them. That buzz, that's the buzz you get from that, is the same buzz I'm talking about. You get a little, little tingle, little excitement.
But you also get goosebumps in that situation.
I think when Shai was saying you get a goosebump. Just one.
Bing.
Hard to identify where on the body.
Well,
but,
in that case, you do get one goosebump anyway. That's too far.
oh, dear. Really? Really?
Look at
Okay.
time for letters.
It is. It's Thursday. The gang is here. It is time for Letters of the Week. It's either time for Letters of the Week or time for a Mahmoudi 1 a.m. dance party.
Going to space. I feel like I'm on a spaceship. Captain, take me up to the moon.
What do we got in letters?
All right. So 2 weeks ago on episode 63, we had a feature interview with the inspiring young Afghan rapper Sonita Alizadeh. So on Facebook, we have Farzaneh Sadaqianlu wrote, "Good luck to Sonita. Life is precious and challenging. It's worth it to stand tall and strong, to reclaim your right. We are proud of her. She's a good role model for other young ladies. Interesting interview. Thank you, Mr. Jian Ghomeshi."
Thank you, Farzaneh.
And then we have Nazila Rafizadeh. She wrote, "I'm so happy for Sonita. She should be proud of herself. It's unfortunate that Iran, claiming to be Islamic, does not allow Afghan Muslims who have taken refuge in Iran to study, but the United States allows her to study at university. And in a short period of 5 years, she now speaks English fluently and has a bright future ahead of her. Thanks, Jian, for this incredible interview."
Thank you, Nazila.
And then we have Bahar, last name HGH. She wrote, "Sonita has the maturity and wisdom of an old spiritual mentor. She's a lotus flower blooming in from a swamp. Kudos to her for her good heart and her passion to make the world a better place. She is a change and she will make a change. Love to her."
What a great letter.
That was
Some of these
beautiful.
people are writing so beautifully, Kian.
Yeah, eloquently.
I can tell it's not you, it's the letter
I know.
writer. Yeah.
I'm not capable of writing such poetic words.
Thank you, Bahar.
And then moving on to Instagram, we have Mahmoud Moradi wrote, "What an interesting program to find out about incredible people from the Iranian diaspora." But diaspora, you get that?
You could tell that that's the way he was pronouncing it when he typed it, yeah.
But I have a suggestion. Is it possible to add English subtitles to the bottom of every episode? English.
Mahmoud, you confuse me with your words. So do you think Mahmoud wants English subtitles for the English parts? Because most of the show is in English.
No, I think he meant Farsi subtitles.
But
You know what?
maybe sometimes when you're on Instagram, he's on Instagram. It's actually when you see the subtitles, you can read along, and if you're on the subway or something, you don't. Yeah.
Well, even for me, when I watch Netflix, for example, I like having the English subtitles on because
Really?
in case I miss something, I can read along.
It doesn't distract you from the
No. And I'm also hard of hearing sometimes, so it helps.
No, and
Yeah.
for some people like me that their English is, for example, my English is not good, I'd rather to have subtitles
Okay.
too.
Well,
I would suggest that we put Farsi subtitles on everything, but I wouldn't be able to read them, so it doesn't make much of a difference. That's an interesting one, Mahmoud. I mean, if we can do that eventually, Captain Reza, can you start doing that? Just type him out there,
right
buddy.
away.
Just throw him on there.
I'm gonna get on it.
Just
ASAP,
go,
Mahmoud Jan.
Yeah, thanks, Mahmoud.
okay. And then we have Samira Talebi. She wrote, "I think this interview has become interesting with the juxtaposition of contradictions. Putting the concept of oppressed girls next to the power of one of them to change her destiny and the meaning of hijab to her. By listening to this episode, I regretted, I laughed, I was upset, and I enjoyed the beautiful songs. In short, almost all my emotions were involved."
Wow, who's that from?
That was Samira Talebi.
Thank you, Samira.
And then we have a general letter from a Shahla Taher. She wrote, "Your program has helped me learn about interesting Iranians who live so near to me, and I appreciate it so much."
You threw in a general letter.
I did,
Yeah, all right.
just to.
Thank
well,
you.
it's not specifying to any.
No, that's very nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
Shahla.
And then, so moving on, last week on episode 65, we had a Roqe special on the football legend Diego Maradona. And it's, of course, after his news of his passing on that exact day, I believe, yeah.
The day after.
The day
Yeah,
after
yeah.
we did it, yeah. So we had several Iranian football experts, players, fans, and analysts to discuss what the football pop icon meant to Iranians around the world, interestingly enough. And so on YouTube, we have a Farhood, last name SM. He wrote, "With all due respect to Maradona, Hossein Majid's take on this tragedy is hilariously Roqe." And in reference to his part, he was essentially saying that Maradona, like, people kind of paint him out to be some kind of god, and at the end of the day, he's human, and he's, you know.
Well, Hossein Majid, I think what Farhood might be referring to is, he says at one point, I said, but in social media it was filled with, you know, Iranians posting about Maradona, and Hossein Majid said Iranians tend to post about people who die as if they were big fans, but, you know, he's kind of basically calling out Iranians for being liars or opportunistic when it comes to death. Of course, the other guests all disagreed with that, and believed that there was a significant connection between Iranians and Maradona because of his rise happening at the same time as the post-revolutionary crackdown was taking place in Iran. So he was their escape. But anyway, that interesting. Thank you, Farhood.
Yeah. And then we have username. Nobody give me slack for this because this gentleman doesn't have a name listed. Username, Mr. Masood911 wrote, hilarious username.
That's good.
Wrote, "Hello, Roqe team. A true story for you. On Wednesday," and by that he means last Wednesday, "I went home and saw my wife with tears in her eyes. She is Romanian and has a strong personality. So when I saw her so sad, it shocked me. When I asked her what the reason was, she gave me the sad news of Maradona's passing. I mentioned this story in reference to Hossein Majid's comments that he wouldn't think anyone other than Argentinians would cry for Maradona."
There you go. Nicely said, Mr. Masood 911.
Masood 911 came to rescue.
All right, and then on Facebook we have a Naz, last name Khan, wrote, "He was the Michael Jackson of football. May he rest in peace." He was. I agree
Or
with
Michael Jackson was the Maradona.
That's true, depending on which way you're looking.
Thinking.
Club. And then we have a Sasan Imam wrote, "In that famous game against England in 1986, John Barnes was injured and only came on as a substitute in the last 10 minutes or so of the game. He crossed the ball twice. Lineker converted one and could have converted the second one if it wasn't for the brilliance of Jose Luis Brown, the Argentine defender. The point is, if Barnes wasn't injured and could have played the whole game, even with Maradona's hand of God goal, I don't think Argentina would have been able to beat England, and obviously, the course of history would have changed. That said, Maradona was the greatest footballer ever to grace the game." Controversial comment there.
Well,
I wasn't alive.
I know
at that
this. I
time.
saw this letter. Thank you, Sasan. I love this guy. He's still relitigating the game from 1986. You know, if this had only happened, the Argentinians would have. Brilliant. That's my kind of guy. He's so into football that he's wasting his time coming up with theories from how this could have. I love it. Thank
Do you remember
Sasan.
that game?
I told you
1986.
I do. I was a teenager, early teens. But not only do I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was sitting with my friend Murray, and I remember watching that game because, of course, I was an England supporter, and we knew of Maradona. No, I remember
It's
it
incredible.
very well. Yeah.
Wow.
This kind of I think it occurs to all events of life,
That's right.
sports.
That's right.
Yeah. You could go crazy thinking
If
about it.
Keon wasn't taking so long reading these letters, the show would end sooner.
Shia just brought this up. All right, Shia, keep your mouth shut. I'm kidding.
Sorry.
All right, and then on Instagram we have username Dr. Unique Lifestyle, and her name is Beta, in case anybody was wondering. She says, "Rest in peace. You're awesome, Jian." Not rest in peace, recurring to you.
What? That's great.
Let me finish.
When did you die?
Rest in
When
peace.
did you pass
You
away?
are awesome, Jian.
Okay.
Your acute sense of timing and analysis is just amazing. Nadir Davudi's part was so hilarious. Forget about Maradona. Watch Ostad Asadi. Thanks, Jian.
You want to explain that?
Again, I wasn't alive back then, but Ostad Asadi was apparently an Iranian football player.
You were alive.
Was I?
When Ostad Asadi was around, because I was alive.
Are you sure you're older than me?
This was like 1998.
Okay, then yeah.
96, 98. When
Keon was not alive in 1998.
I wasn't. Okay, I wasn't.
Sorry.
I wasn't alive to the football world.
To the football
until '98 World Cup. But yes, go on.
But I think the backstory to it is that Ostad Asadi was a defender in Iran national football team, Jian, and who scored a goal to our own team, like
own goal,
and he became infamous for being one of the worst players in Iranian football history.
Was this during the World Cup?
Yeah. Well, it was in the
preliminary for the World Cup.
it was preliminary.
I have a story about the 1998 World Cup. Now that we're indulging ourselves, so it's too good a story to really waste on this letter section. But anyway, the 1998 World Cup, I was on tour with my band, and we were in Arkansas, in the States. Now, if you don't know the United States, Arkansas is kind of the South, a little conservative, very white. We were playing a gig in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and it was the day, I think we had day off the day after, I think it was, and it was the game between Iran and the United States.
Where Iran won.
In the 1998 World Cup, and Iran ends up winning 2-1, and I run out of the hotel, cheering for, like, on the streets of Arkansas.
Oh no!
And my bandmates and crew were just like, "Dude, what are you doing? You're gonna get us killed."
They would have probably labeled you a terrorist back then.
100%.
Oh, you might as well yelled Allahu Akbar.
Arkansas, I'm telling you, God love them, but we were. In fact, that gig I remember at in Fort Smith, Arkansas, was a big outdoor gig, and we had this song where we made fun of Rush Limbaugh, the right wing radio host, and like literally half the audience walked out. They were so angry at us. I remember it well because I ended up writing about it, but it was that whole Arkansas experience. It was, because they were just like, who are these guys making fun of Rush Limbaugh? It was. I was the lone Iranian in Arkansas in 1998, running around cheering for the victory. But I remember it was just such a huge deal, right? I mean, beating the U.S. in the World Cup.
It was. I remember that game.
It
was a shifty game.
Were you alive then?
I was alive.
That was 22 years ago.
That's when I first started watching football because of my dad. But that was a shifty win on Iran's part.
What do you mean?
It wasn't a clean win. Like it was just. Do you remember the goal?
How dare you?
You gotta put a negative spin on everything, Kian.
No.
Of course it wasn't a clean win. Keep quiet.
From my memory, at least. Anyway, moving on. Back to the own goal. Moving on. This week on episode 66, we commemorated the anniversary of the Alagband protests and massacre in Iran last November. So on that episode, we had Nazanin Ansari. She's the editor of Kayhan London, Kayhan Life. As well, freelance journalist Roshanak Astaraki and Stuart Williams from the Agence France Presse on the show to share their views and insights on the situation in Iran 1 year later. So on that very sad episode, we had a few people write in. We have on YouTube Garshasp Nodan.
Oh, Garshasp is back.
Yeah, I always like reading his comments.
What does he have to say?
He says, good episode and great contributions by the two ladies. I cannot say the same about the British gentleman who sounded pretty clueless on the subject.
I was waiting for it.
Gosh,
I was waiting.
Throw us a bone. Can't there just be one show that is?
And then he makes a comment on it was Mona from Melbourne. Mona from Melbourne.
Yes.
She was saying she made a reference to a Malik Oshara. Is that right?
Malik
and
Oshara,
anyway, so Gashaf says Malik Oshara is the nickname for the contemporary poet Muhammad Taqi Bahar. Malik means king here, and Malik Oshara would be translated to the king of poets.
Shai, can we just run that by you? Is that correct?
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
I think Gashasp should join the team. Should just come in here, do live critical commentary of everything we're doing. But I have I have a keen sense of Gashasp's politics. Given that he liked those contributions, and the ones he likes, he doesn't like. I get it. So anyway, thanks as ever. Keep writing it. We love it.
So it goes against yours. Is that why you wouldn't be?
Not at all. I have no politics. I'm a man of the people.
Sure you are. Sure you are.
Kian Jun.
Well, moving on. On Facebook, we have a Sohrab Abrari wrote, I love the fact that you guys go beyond just interviewing successful people. This episode was unique, and we need more and more episodes like this. This is the only way we can help Iranians who are suffering. Thanks to you and everyone who is running the show. Very well said. I agree with that.
That means a lot, actually. These are difficult or weird decisions for us to make. I mean, what do we know? We're kind of going, okay, we had Reza Rouhani on, we had something about Maradona, now we want to make sure to commemorate the 1 year anniversary of these horrible events in Iran. So that it gets noticed by someone is really appreciated. Thanks for writing that, Sohrab.
Yes, thank you, Sohrab. And it's about time for, you guessed it, the letter of the week. All right. This week's letter of the week goes to Afshin Qanbari Siakali. He wrote, thanks for the program, which was great as usual. Listening to your guest Stuart Williams's comments regarding Bloody November makes me sad, and at the same time believe that we as Iranians, both inside and outside of Iran, have undeniably failed to explain to the world the true nature of the establishment in Iran. An ideological regime which is extremely repressive in its nature and incompetent in dealing with the various economic and social challenges in a young and progressive-seeking nation, despite the huge natural wealth and human resources. The regime has never ever intended to provide prosperity and progress in Iran. Those who are in charge consider themselves as war conquerors, and as a result, their only goal is to plunder the land and keep the nation as slaves and hostages. Regrettably, this has been going on for the last 42 years. I picked this letter because it's very well written and very well said, and it's important to remember this.
You agree with it?
Yeah.
Afshin Qanbari Siakali is what you said?
Yes, that's a gem.
Thank you very much, Afshin. You have the letter of the week. It's Thursday. It's the end of the show. It's the end of the letters. That can only be one thing. That's full time for Roqe for today. For all things Roqe, make sure you head to our website, roqemedia.com, roqemedia.com, to access all of our episodes, our Roqe Reads, our patrons page. Thank you to the amazing team who put this show together day after day. Producer Susan, Ponta the artist, Thoughtful Negin, the fabulous Kian, Savvy Roham, Aghay Mehrdad, Master Muhammad, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you have not done so already. We appreciate it when you subscribe. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi, and remember, as always, Mizun Bashin.